Hey y'all, it's Sharon Armstrong, your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. I wanted to make a card with you guys today using the Rose Wonder stamp set. And you know, this big stamp, it's almost like, what else can we do with it? Well, I came up with something, so I hope you like it. Last week on my blog, I talked about triple time stamping, and that is when you have different layers of cardstock and you stamp everything all at one time. Well, I'm going to be doing triple time stamping, but not really. But this is what inspired me to use the Rose Wonder. So I have my card layers all done, and I will tell you what those dimensions are. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the smaller piece, and I want to stamp my sentiment first before anything. I know usually we do sentiments last, but I figured out on some cards that I made, when I was done, I didn't have room for the sentiment. So we're going to do that first. And first we're going to put some embossing buddy on here. And I wonder, it will fit that way. Okay, we're going to do it that way. All right, so let's make sure we got that all on there. And I'm going to be stamping with Versamark ink. And I'm using the Happy Birthday from that stamp set. And then I'm going to use some copper embossing powder. This copper embossing powder is very staticky. Can you see how it's stuck to the sides of the jar? And it almost jumps onto the cardstock. It's really kind of crazy stuff. And I can't even quite get it all out of my little tray that I hold it in. It's just, I don't know, it's very staticky. So make sure when you're using the copper embossing powder that you use the embossing buddy, or you're gonna have embossing powder where you don't want it. So now we're gonna, okay. So now we have that done. Next, I'm going to take the big stamp, and I'm going to ink up the whole thing with the Versamark because I'm not quite sure where things are going to stamp. So I want to make sure I get it everywhere. Now, triple time stamping, I would have all my layers together, but I figured out with the embossing, I can't do that. So I'm actually going to do this at an angle. This is going to be even different than the other cards I did. The other cards I did them for Mother's Day cards, so I'll have those on my blog next week, but I don't want my people to see their cards until they get them in the mail, so I won't be posting them on the blog. So I'm going to go ahead and pour the embossing powder on. Missed a little spot. And then I'm going to heat set. I see a little bit of unwanted powder, so I keep, where is it? I keep a Q-tip on my station because the embossing powder is in the middle of the flower. Even though I use the embossing buddy, okay, now we'll heat set. Okay, so we're done with that layer, and I'm just going to set that aside. And then I'm going to get my next layer. And I can tell how I stamped because I can see my Versamark image on my scrap. So I'm going to try to follow the exact same layout. I'm going to ink up my stamp. See how lovely my fingernails look? I'm going to wipe that off. I keep a white rag by my station so that I can do that often. All right, so like I said, I can see my leaves, and I'm just going to stamp the same way But I'm actually going to go down just a little bit because I want some leaves on there. We will be coloring those. And we're going to pour copper powder back into the tub. See what I mean by static? It just sticks to the tub. I've never noticed that with the other embossing powders. There must be something in this that makes it do that. Okay, now we're done with that layer, and we're going to do it one more time on our larger piece. And I figured out that I could do it this way because it doesn't have to be perfect when I line everything back up when I start putting the card together, which made it even more fun when I discovered that. Pour my powder on. And heat set. Okay. So now the fun part comes. We're going to take all of our pieces and we're going to color them with markers. I tried using, and by the way, this is shimmery white paper. I tried using like a watercoloring technique, and it didn't work for me. I just decided that I liked this better. It was very relaxing to do all these, and I did all different colors for my Mother's Day cards. And I thought, oh, this is what that adult coloring book stuff is like. I haven't really colored with my markers in a long time, and I really enjoyed it. So then what I started doing is when I couldn't decide if I was getting near leaves or not, I laid this over here and I can see that this is all still flowers, except for right here is some leaves. So I know not to color that one. So that's how I figured out the best way to know where to color and what to color it. So that was Daffodil Delight, and now I'm using Wild Wasabi for my leaves. And I know that I caught a piece of the leaf up here. Now, before I start coloring, I'm going to take my layers, and I want to point out to you that you don't have to color the whole thing. Like, this is going to be layering on the copper paper, and I'm going to be putting it over here, over this, so I don't have to color the center of this layer. Make sense? So I know that this is all yellow. And on some of them, I went over it again to color to make it darker. And that kind of gave me the shading I wanted for that watercolored look without being stressed out about watercoloring. The shimmery white cardstock lends itself for me to just keep going over and over again without pilling up like the Whisper White cardstock would do. Oops, wrong end. Okay, so now let's check it again. We're going to take this layer, layer it over it, and I still see some white here, so I'm going to come back in with my yellow. And I'm just going to color a little bit. I don't have to color the whole flower or petal because you can't see it. And now I see some over here on this side. I'll do the same thing. See what I mean? Okay. Now, I am going to go ahead and color this yellow here so that I don't have any white showing. Totally up to you how you want to do it. But yep, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so now I'm going to take my next layer. I'm going to take another piece of my copper, layer that over this one, and see if I need to color anything else. And I really don't. I don't have to. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, let's put this together. So we have our Daffodil Delight card base, and I prefer to use Fast Fuse adhesive. Especially when I'm adhering the copper paper, something to the copper paper. I found that the snail kind of popped off. See, I didn't have to color all of that. I know y'all thought, oh, we're going to be here all day watching her color, but nope. And I thought about fast forwarding through my coloring stuff, but I wanted y'all to understand what I was omitting on the coloring and what I wasn't. Okay, let me grab my dimensionals. So it's really not triple time stamping, but that's what inspired me. So I don't know what to call it. Faux triple time stamping, I don't know. So remember how I said that sometimes I decide to come back with the yellow and do darker petals? So I'm going to do that before I put this together. I'm going to pick some of them and I'm going to make them a little bit darker. And now we're going to put this together. And then the last thing I want to do is use some Wink of Stella. I love the Wink of Stella, and it just really finished off this card. Hard to see with the lights where I haven't colored yet. Probably should have colored that one yellow, but that's okay. I'm still happy with it. Okay, I hope that this has brought you a newfound love for the Rose Wonder, and I would love to see if you make any of these cards yourself. Thanks for watching.